Hey, YouTubers. It's been a while. So long, my hair has grown out, and I look like Obi-Wan now. And I did no shave November. That's why it looks like this. Just letting you know.
Actually, I don't think you look like Obi-Wan.
What do I look like then? Fat Obi-Wan?
No, you look like Anakin.
Oh, thanks. Somehow I'm a whiny bitch now.
He looks like a grown-up Jake Lloyd.
Oh, God.
Exactly. That's what
Great. I'm going to go hang myself tomorrow night now. Holy cow. All right. Here we go.
That's mean. Jake Lloyd's a good person.
He is. I'm saying I'm not. Okay. All right. Here we go. Hey, folks. Welcome to this episode of the GalaxyCast. I have 3 people with me in the studio tonight. I am your host, Bob Crispin. I have with me Eric the Artist.
Mark Hamill wished me a happy Thanksgiving.
And I have with me Gary the Stud.
Mark Hamill didn't wish me nothing.
And Mark Hamill doesn't even know who the heck I am, so it's all good. Eric had a great run-in with Mark Hamill for his birthday, and I just thought that was awesome.
Really quick, Mark Hamill, if you are following him on Twitter, used to wish people happy birthdays, stopped doing it because, of course, 10 bazillion people ask him a day to wish him a happy birthday. But I found a loophole in his policy in that my birthday landed on Thanksgiving this year, so I literally wrote, I know he won't wish me a happy birthday, but maybe I can get him to wish me a happy Thanksgiving, and he did. And it ended up getting 2,300 and something likes over the course of a couple days, a ton of retweets, all these people commenting on it. I added my artwork to the thread. Mark Hamill went back and liked the artwork pictures of my Star Wars murals.
Yep.
So he liked like 4 of my tweets in there and commented that way. So it was a nice little interaction I had with Mark Hamill on my birthday.
I just thought that was great. It was such an awesome moment. Well, we have lots of things we want to talk about with you tonight. We're going to talk about Stan Lee. We're going to talk about the Netflix situation and what's going on with Marvel there. We're going to talk about The Mandalorian, the TV series. We're going to talk about Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures. And we're going to end it all off with a little bit of Once Upon a Deadpool. Okay, so I think we should honor this moment by taking 60 seconds for a moment of silence for the man who, quite honestly, is the reason I think that a lot of us are here. I mean, there is no doubt, no denying that Stan Lee was a major influence, I think, on all 3 of us sitting here at this table. I mean, I don't think there's a character that Stan Lee created that we didn't like in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to take 60 seconds just to kind of honor the passing of Stan Lee. You can go ahead and laugh, Eric.
You can edit 60 seconds in. Why don't you just edit 60 seconds of silence in?
I will. I just thought of that, too.
Okay.
And why my stomach went, oh, right now, I do not know.
Anyway.
Wow. Okay.
There's some editing to do here.
Yes.
That was great.
And we're not trying to dishonor Stan Lee.
No, we're not. But for the YouTube people who see that.
It just proves that we are never normal.
Nope.
Okay.
Sounds like a little bit of irregularity.
There might be a tad bit going on there. I don't know. We'll see.
It's all Hondo's fault.
It is. It's all Ned and Hondo. It's all your fault.
No, it's not Ned's fault. It's Hondo's.
It's Hondo's fault, yes.
Because he reached your shatter points.
Okay. So Stan Lee died at 95 years of age on November 15th he died? 16th?
So they're November 11th or 12th.
November 12th. Okay, he passed away on November 12th. I got to be honest, my wife and I were driving. Where were we coming from? I don't even remember. I think we were coming back from my daughter's senior recital. And I just happened to be perusing Facebook for a second, and I scrolled past it, and I read it, and I had to read it again because I thought, well, because we see hoaxes like that online all the time, and I thought maybe it was a joke.
Or a clickbait title.
Right, and then I realized, well, wait a minute, CNBC's reporting this, Fox News is reporting this was a serious thing. And so I was just sitting there, and we were driving back, and all of a sudden my wife looked over, and I guess I broke down. I broke down for a good couple of minutes. And she looked at me, she's like, wow, this is just a guy. Like, this is, and I'm like, but you don't understand. This isn't, to me, this isn't just a guy. Like, this isn't just, I don't know how to explain this to somebody. This isn't like, and I'm going to be upset when our Star Wars actors go. I mean, that's, but this was more than that. Like, Stan Lee, to me, was a guy who created my childhood. Like the fantasy world I lived in my childhood was all Stan Lee created. There's no doubt in my mind that he grabbed my attention as a kid, and I lived in that little fantasy world that he created. And so that was, I think, what kind of hit me. It was like, all of a sudden, wait a minute, I can't get my childhood back. You know, it's like kind of like that innocence you lose, and you can't get that back. So it was a moment of like, wow, like there won't be a Stan Lee moment again. And then I kind of got sad too about the idea that we won't see him in a Marvel movie again. Like,
well, we're going to for a little while.
For a little bit, but it's
he apparently has filmed a number of cameos in advance.
Correct. Yeah, there's from my understanding, there's 3 or 4 yet to be done. But I'm just appalled at the idea that there won't be a Stan Lee cameo at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it affected you guys, but that's the way it generally affected me. Just the idea that I won't read or see a Stan Lee story ever again was kind of highly impactful on me.
Right. And you mean a story, not a story about him, a story he wrote.
Something he wrote, yes. Right, or had a huge influence in, you know, and that's to me that's what Marvel has always been. Even when Stan stepped away from Marvel, they have still consulted with him. He has still been a major influence, and to realize that that's just not a thing anymore. It's a huge thing for me. So I don't know how you guys felt about the passing of Stan Lee, and I mean, I don't expect you guys to be like jumping for joy or anything,
no.
But
it was definitely
thoughts?
For me. It was, you know, this is a man who created such iconic stories and characters. They're known the world over. I mean, the world, and not by people who read comics. These are characters that crossed so much into mainstream culture, not just pop culture, that they are on everything. They are everywhere. There's clothing lines and apparel and you know products and knickknacks and shows and things. Before the movies even ever came out, some of the things he created were household names.
Right.
So the man was a powerhouse in terms of what he created. There are, of course, the tales of him not being the greatest to work with. Him taking things from
Joe.
Joe. Oh my God, I'm having total brain.
Not Sinnott, right? No,
Jack Kirby.
Jack Kirby
and
so there are stories.
Joe Sinnott, thank you.
There are stories of him, you know, taking credit for things like Jack Kirby did more of, and other characters did more of, and you hear those stories that, you know. But at the same point, he was a tireless self-promoter for what he. I mean, the guy lived and breathed what he did.
Right.
And there's no denying. You know, you don't speak ill of people at this time. You know, you don't focus on those things. You just kind of say the man had an unbelievable influence on a huge number of people's lives. Not necessarily in the way they go about their daily life, but just the fact that they're aware of what he. I mean, the huge amount of the populace being aware of things he had a hand in. So obviously the guy had an amazing, gigantic influence. My story of Stan Lee is I got to meet him once. I was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2011 doing chalk art, and every morning, well, the first night I was there, I realized he was staying in my hotel.
Right.
And I saw him in the lobby, but he, of course, had a crowd of about 30 people around him, plus his handler and stuff. And I was getting close, kind of hanging out. The guy saw me, and I said, I just wanted to show Stan what I do. You know, I happen to have my little portfolio with me of chalk art pieces. I've done a number of, you know, Marvel pieces.
Right.
And I said, I just think he'd, you know, appreciate it. I'm not looking for anything else. He said, well, as you can see, he's surrounded, he's crazy busy. But the guy said, I'll tell you what, every morning we have breakfast downstairs, and it's usually very quiet. So, if you want to have breakfast down there, maybe we'll get a chance. So every morning, the entire 4 days I was at Comic-Con working, I'd go down and have breakfast every morning. It also was the easiest way to do it in the hotel. There was nowhere, I wasn't going to get anywhere, you know, it was crowded and everything. So I didn't mind. And every morning I saw him come down, and every morning I'd catch the eye of the handler. The guy would be like, not today, not today. Last day I was there, the guy waved me over. He said, yeah, come on over. So it was just him and his handler having breakfast. And I sat with them for like 10, 15 minutes.
Cool.
And people in their interactions with Stan Lee, I hear about him. It's like, I got to say hi to him, and it was like 20 seconds. And I was honored that I got to sit there, open my portfolio, show. And he immediately stopped eating. He started looking much more closely at what I'd done. He was flipping the pages. And he looked up at me, and I'll never forget. He was like, "You've created your own art form here."
Yeah.
And in just moments, he kind of summed up the trajectory of my career that I always planned. I always said I could go to comic conventions and be one of 800 people in Artist Alley.
Right.
Or I could go and be one of one doing the chalk art.
Right.
And so I early on made that decision. I'm going to do this unique path. he almost immediately, we're talking, that took me a year or two to really kind of wrap my brain around and realize what I was doing. In seconds, he saw that. He's like, you're taking this unique trajectory and doing all this stuff. So the guy thought business. The guy instantly looked at the angles. I mean, he was, and this was, it would have been like 5 years ago. He was about 90, you know? So he was on at 90 in terms of seeing exactly what the angle were on things. And that impressed me, and will always impress me, that he was that aware of stuff. So I talked to him. He liked the work. He thought it was cool. I was asked a couple times to maybe do a piece at the Stanley Kamikaze Con, but it never worked out.
Right.
I did do the tribute piece at ACBC. He couldn't attend because he was sick.
Yep.
So I never got to bump into him again. But I'm just happy I have that moment with him. And the guy was cool. Apart from the ups and downs, whatever his life had, we all have constant ones. And when you're as big as he was and working in the business he did, I'm sure he upset a lot of people.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm sure they were valid reasons to be upset with him. But the guy was an icon.
Right.
There's not a lot of people you can call icons, and he was. So he'll be missed.
Gary, thoughts on death of Stan Lee? I mean, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't have no cool story like Eric got.
I don't either, so it's okay.
I didn't have the emotions that you had about it.
So if you didn't have his emotions or my story, you've got cold, hard logic on your side.
Pretty much. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but most of my life I've been around death. I mean, I've had a lot of aunts and uncles pass away and all that, so it's a normal thing to me, I guess.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, so it's I don't know what else to say. I don't want to disrespect the guy.
No, I get what you're saying. And I don't think I was sad about, like, his passing. And that was the really weird thing I was trying to explain to even my kids. Like, I wasn't sad at his passing. He's 95. What could the guy complain about? I mean, he lived till 95. We could only dream of living till 95. I would love to live to 95. I guess what I was kind of emotional about was the sudden realization that my childhood took a hit. You know what I mean? Like, it's my childhood. It's to me, when I was getting bullied in school, made fun of for my weight, and people were making fun of me, calling me Larson and everything else because of Gary Larson, and they always compared me to the fat characters on there. And so, like, I started hating art and comic strips and all that because I was being made fun of for that stuff. But then I knew when I read a Marvel comic, nobody was ever going to compare me to those characters and make fun of me for that. So that was, like, the one thing that always kind of, like, I could look to that as the escape versus everything else in the world. And I'm kind of sad I never got to meet Stan. It was the one person I'd always kind of had on my bucket list that John Williams is another one I have on my bucket list that I'd love to meet. And I was so hoping he'd be at ACBC so I could meet him. And I never even had a shot to get an autograph, so I was just so thankful that, his I think it was his daughter was there running the table, but I got to meet her.
Yeah, whoever was at the museum portion of that,
pretty sure it was his daughter,
said that write your name down and pay for the autograph that you would have paid for here, but it was a lot cheaper that way too.
Right.
And we'll make sure that you get an autograph of whatever you want an autograph. And they had like there
were options,
30 or 40 different
comic
things
books and stuff that you could get an autograph.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I got one too.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like
that's where
I got that comic book. Yeah, my Captain America one, and it was just kind of like, and she was really cool about it. And that's where I met Muse too, who was goofing around about buying things from the Stanley Museum, which I'll still never forget.
Explain who.
Jason Muse,
yeah, just for our listeners.
Jay and Silent Bob.
So you do have a good story you can tell.
I do.
It's
while we were at ACBC and I wanted to meet Stanley and I couldn't. Jason Muse came over and started talking to the lady from the Stanley Museum, and he had his wallet out and he's looking at the Galactus and Silver Surfer statue. I mean, it was an amazing statue. It was like probably a 5-foot tall statue of Galactus with Silver Surfer going around him, and Muse goes, "So how much for the statue?" And the lady goes, No, this is from Stan's personal museum. It's not for sale." And Jason goes, "Come on, everything's got a price." And she's like, "No, seriously, we can't." And he looked at me and he goes, "Can we sneak it away for like an hour?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Dude, I know you could cast it. You could make a cast of it. We could make millions. Come on." He's like, and I'm like, "Leave me out of it. I don't want to get in trouble." But
Stan Lee brought you together.
Stan Lee brought me and Jason Muse together, goofing around at the Stanley Museum. It was a great moment, and Stan Lee is forever gonna. And so here's my thing. I was thinking about, like, as we were driving back, I was sitting there thinking, has there ever been, or will there ever be, an American author as, I guess, as much of a celebrity as Stan Lee was? Like, has there ever been an American author that's been that?
There's King.
Like, yeah, I guess Stephen King has his following.
He's had more movies made of his stuff than any other author.
True.
He's appeared, you've seen him physically. People are aware what he looks like and stuff. But he's not the character.
Right.
To the extent that he's a character, but he's not the character to the extent Stan Lee was.
You're right. Stephen King is pretty popular, But I've been trying to think of it. Like, there's not a lot of authors you can sit there and say they've had that much of an influence. And even if you go outside the United States, I mean, like, yeah, you could argue people like J.R.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis or other people maybe in the pop culture world might have had, but I just don't think there's anybody out there that's had that kind of influence as Stan Lee's had, and that's pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, just from the standpoint of I don't want to say the sheer power, but just the idea that he affected that many people. Yeah. And that's just pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He's touched people all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he could have been arrested for that. He has mentally touched.
Right.
He's been influenced on the lives of so many people. So he's
absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see how, we move forward now without a Stan Lee around to guide the comic book industry. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Well, has he been guiding it anytime recently?
I guess he really hasn't, because Marvel's been making their own decisions without him, and I don't know how much influence he's had
from what I read
in the last 10 years or so.
He literally was the Marvel mascot. They paid him to be Stan Lee. Right. Go around and be Stan Lee.
And nothing much more
he
beyond
was
that.
He was not contributing a whole lot to the storylines or anything like that. I mean, they've got their writers and their bullpens and all that have been going for years and decades. He was more of a figurehead at this point.
Right.
But there's still that influence.
It was funny. About a week later, maybe it was 2, a couple of my friends were like, they posted up this thing about a story of like, don't forget, Stan Lee's also the guy that created, right? And they went through some of the characters like MODOK, like some of the crazy ones you're just kind of like
MODOK.
But I mean, like, as weird as Stan was and some of the things he created, even those were kind of cool. Not really, they wouldn't work well, but you got to give him credit where credit's due, and you got to also admit there were some bombs that came out from Stan Lee's group too. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, ironic that we're going to talk about this just after talking about Stan Lee. There's been a lot of announcements coming out lately about canceled shows on Netflix, and we're not talking about actual, Netflix-backed things, but more of Marvel shows that are getting canceled on Netflix.
Yep. In the past month,
there's been a flurry of things going on. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it when people ask me, like, what do you think of all this going on? Like, it's just a flurry of cancellations. So
Iron Fist went first, which a lot of people expected. Because
was it Iron Fist first or Defenders first? I can't remember.
Well, Defenders was
kind of the same day, right?
Was kind of a one-off. They didn't know if there was going to be another Defenders. And when they canceled Iron Fist, people were saying, well, he'll be back in the next Defenders series.
Right.
His series wasn't successful.
Right.
But then Luke Cage got canceled.
And that was the next day, if I remember correctly,
very
right?
Close to it, very close.
Yeah.
And people were like, what's going on
Yeah, like,
here?
what's going on?
And then there were, of course, pictures of the 4 of them together and the 2 of them fading into dust, and they're saying it was the Snap. There's
the
your
Snap
half.
killed half of them.
But now
I did kind of wonder if they were going to leave it at that. Like, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, they disappeared, Thanos snapped, whatever. I did think that was kind of a cool idea if they were going to go with it. But then, since then, Daredevil's been canceled too. Now,
big one.
I haven't seen the latest season of Daredevil, but I heard it's really good.
I hear there's an 11-minute one-take fight scene in it.
Yeah, there's an 11-minute scene where in one take they did the scene. It was crazy. And I just can't. I'm surprised, but I'm not. Surprised, but I'm not.
Right.
And of course, now everybody who watches Jessica Jones. And the Punisher are kind of sitting on bated breath going,
well, I'll tell you right now,
any second
we're
now?
Not the only ones surprised, because people were tweeting from the Daredevil writing room about how much work they'd put into season 4.
Right.
They had timelines, they had moments, they had all these cool things they were going to touch on. People were like, it's weird sitting in the Daredevil writing room knowing we're done. We're wrapping everything up here. They still showed up because they have to close up shop.
Right.
But they were like, we thought we were spending all this time preparing a season 4, so they didn't know. The writers had no idea.
Right. And so there's now a lot of speculation about why this has been happening. And I called this as soon as Disney talked about launching their app.
Oh, yeah.
I knew it was coming. I saw it coming. I think it was hard for most people not to see it coming. That Disney's basically shut down everything outside of the scope of what Disney has. I would not be surprised if the next series of things we see getting canceled are things like The Gifted. What's the one that's on FX right now? Legion. I think that'll get canceled soon.
And then you got the Sony properties, which we know they bought up. They're going to get them in the sale.
Yeah,
the
eventually.
Fox. It was the Sony. The
Fox.
Fox.
Yeah, Fox.
Properties. And now Sony. How hard is Sony shaking right now? Going, are we going to lose Spider-Man?
Right. I mean,
they're going to somehow find a way to take this from.
I mean, I guess the question is how much are they willing to hang on to Spider-Man? How hard are they willing to hang on to it? You know, beyond,
because that's about the last major property.
Pretty much,
that's not back in their wheelhouse. You know, they want full control of it.
Right. Oh, I know they want it. It's just a matter of, is Sony willing to hang on, or are they gonna be? Are they gonna force them to pay big bucks? And I don't know. That might just be it right there. You know.
And I think Universal still owns the Hulk. So
that you're right. That's true
for individual films.
Individual films.
One of the reasons they haven't been making individual films.
Right. Which is surprising for me. I'm amazed they haven't gone after Universal for that. Which
I'm guaranteeing you, there's something behind the scenes where they're pushing for it.
I'm sure they are, but right now it doesn't seem like Universal's budging at all.
Well, unless they already own it and it has been announced.
That's true. That's a possibility.
Because after all
everything after Avengers 4 is kind of like, you don't know yet, you know. So it's kind of like, yeah. Now, it has been revealed, at least in an interview the Russo brothers gave, that the original After Avengers 4 is no longer the original After Avengers 4. They did say that after the sale, they went back to the writing room and rehashed the timeline. So I guarantee that there's been a discussion about, like, what does that mean?
Fantastic Four, X-Men.
Right. So I'm sure that that's all, being included in this. But I guess the big question is, like, does Disney now take Daredevil from the Netflix series and just put it on their app? Or do they start over?
Yeah, and that's my wondering, is these people have put a lot into these characters on Netflix. And some of these shows have been really good. Like, I kind of picture Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
It's hard not to now.
He did a really good job as the character.
Right.
But, maybe you don't know behind the scenes. Maybe the Disney higher-ups and people in Marvel are like, we've never liked this version. We want to change it up. We want it more. We want it this way. So who knows? It could go either way. I would like to see these people continue in the roles. But we all know that Marvel can survive a recast.
So according to this article on Collider, the only thing that's been confirmed on the Disney app is a limited series starring Tom Hiddleston as Loki, so we might,
which is awesome.
Which I would love to see a Loki series. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, and there's also the rumor of Falcon and Winter Soldier having a series. I wouldn't be surprised to see something.
A buddy series. The two
buddy
of them.
series. It wouldn't surprise me to see that. A Scarlet Witch series would be cool.
Yep.
I could totally see a Scarlet Witch and Vision series would be a cool thing.
Well,
because weren't they a comic book for a while, right?
They've been a couple for a long time, but now that Vision's dead, and does he come back?
Well, and there's a lot of questions there about how that works. But it's interesting because now this app is kind of under Kevin Feige's, and they point that out here, not Jeff Loeb. Now, with that all said, I don't know if you've watched both seasons of Iron Fist. I have.
No.
They're extremely slow.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Extremely slow. The only of all the series that I watched, and I've watched them all now twice, except for the last season of Daredevil. The only one that has kept me entertained all the way through from beginning to end, ironically, is Luke Cage. And it's not the one I was really excited to see. I actually wanted to see Jessica Jones. I really wanted to see the others.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's the only one I liked.
Yeah, it really is the only one that...
And I watched it all from the first season right to the end.
Right. And it just is the only thing to me that had any substance to it at all. And actually, I'm a little upset to see it go, only because it introduced Cottonmouth and all these other crazy characters that I actually kind of liked in the Marvel Universe. Now, they could reintroduce them. I'm sure they would consider it. It's just kind of hard to do that now. Now, on the flip side, Jeff Loeb, and it is another controversy with Jeff Loeb. A lot of people complained you didn't see the characters in their costumes enough to know they were the characters. I could see where that's a complaint and where Marvel might want to redo it and fix that. So now that
Marvel,
Luke Cage looks like Luke Cage, Iron Fist, looks like Iron Fist, you know?
I mean, Marvel was always big on that. Marvel was always, let's get them in their costumes in a way that works.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. I think the Disney app's going to be an interesting thing when it comes out. And I guess the real question is
2019,
2019, right? Like, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Because Disney's app comes out, the WB app comes out for all the Warner Brothers stuff. That's
price point is going to be
Superman
big.
And all that.
If Disney comes out at about a Netflix price, it's going to be very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Appealing.
Well, already there's been a discussion there's going to be a price war. Who can undercut the other company but still make a profit in the end? Right. And you got to remember, we've got Hulu in that mix. We've got Netflix in that mix. The Disney app. Amazon Prime, the Warner Brothers.
Amazon Prime, I think, is going to be fine because they're tied to
they've
Amazon
got so
itself.
many other things.
And they've got so much going on. I think the fact that they can take their videos and digitize them and just say, hey, here's all these channels and things, I think Amazon's going to be fine.
Right.
Hulu, I see being
they may not be able to compete.
Iffy one, because they're focused purely on television.
Right.
But a lot of the big shows people want to see on television are going to be on these other apps.
Right. And I think Disney's got a challenge too. There's only certain things they can offer, right? Like, it's all Disney stuff.
Yeah, they can only offer Star Wars and Marvel.
but you get what I'm saying, though, right? Like, I know what you're saying about
the entire
money.
back catalog of all Disney movies, animation, and shows.
But here's the catch, though. Would people be willing to... I'm just putting this out there as a thought process. No. Would people be willing to pay for a streaming service when I've already got those Disney movies I like sitting in my cabinet on Blu-ray or DVD?
That's, Disney is working on... Content is king, and that's going to be the key. Mandalorian and
that's what
Loki TV series are just the start.
They're going to have to... I mean, that's got to be the tip of the iceberg. They're going to have to start generating some stuff and fast in order to catch up. Because think about it. Netflix already has all these series that we got going on. Yeah, you took away all the Marvel properties, but to an extent, Netflix is kind of laughing, going, really? We got The Handmaid's Tale, we got this, we got that. I mean, like... Yeah. How many shows do they have that's there?
It amazes me that and how quickly it happened. I remember when Netflix started coming out with these original. I'd see Netflix original above a random show or two on my screen. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. They're making shows now. I feel like that was 2.5, maybe 3 years ago that I started.
That was almost
that.
6.
And now, it's most of their content is Netflix original. Netflix original. I'm scrolling through, going, my God, all these shows they make.
Right.
They became a production studio.
They did become a production powerhouse,
and they did it fast.
Right. Right.
So Disney can do it pretty fast.
Sure. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to keep up with the Joneses and produce it quick enough to compete?
The way I look at it is it's going to come down to 3. Everyone else will kind of fall by the wayside, and it's going to be Amazon, Netflix, and Disney. I feel things like CBS's app.
Yeah, that's going to be
even though it's got Star Trek, they're going to have to make a deal to like move the show to Netflix or move the show to Amazon or something like that. I just feel like those other side ones are going to end up, even HBO Go. Their mobile streaming.
I think they're going to have to go in with somebody in order to keep going
because they're losing Game of Thrones. And granted, they're doing. Is it HBO that's doing? No, is it Amazon doing the Lord of the Rings show? We talked about that.
That's Amazon doing the Lord of the Rings show.
So they've got
that's their hook.
And that hook is going to keep them going for a while, especially if they got like a 5-year commitment to that thing. People are going to be all over that.
Right.
HBO. I'm trying. They had one big thing in the pipeline coming up. Because they're losing Game of Thrones after this next season.
They are.
And they don't have anything else that you're just like, oh my God, must see type thing. So I thought they named something else, but I can't remember what it was. But what I got excited about, and I showed you guys just before the show started, Netflix is doing a live-action Cowboy Bebop television series. Anime geeks all over the world are super excited about that. And terrified.
And when you look at other things, too, like Titans on the WB app, right? Like... I don't know if that's going to be able to compete with all this. I mean, it's starting to get to be a point where this is all noise, right? Like, it is getting to a point where comic book TV shows are noise. There's a lot of it, and I hate to say it, I myself am having to start making the decision about, hey, I'm not going to watch this show anymore because I just can't.
There's not tons I haven't seen. There's a majority of the comic book shows. This is me.
Right.
Collected comic books.
Right, same here,
Works at comic conventions, wants to draw comic books.
Right.
I don't watch most of these shows simply because of time.
Right, and I'm having the same issue. I actually dropped Supergirl this year, and I never thought I would stop. I just couldn't. It was just like there's too much to watch.
They changed the day and time on it, and I can't get it on my DVR now.
Oh, really? Well, it's not even that for me. It's just I had to make a decision. You know what I
Right,
mean?
well-
I can't keep filling my DVR with all this crazy stuff, and at some point I had to make a decision.
Well, the problem is they
Supergirl went.
changed all the times for the shows that I was getting.
Right.
Legends of Tomorrow.
They did.
And the DVR doesn't pick it up?
My DVR won't pick it up. No.
No.
The change, it won't.
Yeah, you have to find it again and
Reselect
rehook it.
and
Yeah.
re-series
Yeah.
it and delete your old one.
Yep. And I'm a little woeful to to hook up with Batwoman, not because I'm not interested, I am, but it's just kind of like I can't put another show on, you know what I mean? Like it's something else is going to have to come off, and I just, you know, and I am getting to that point where I'm going to have to start making some tough decisions, and I don't want to make some of them. Like I like Legends of Tomorrow, but it may have to go soon. Love The Flash. I don't think I'll ever stop watching The Flash, but it's just like I got to start making tough decisions. Now, the one good thing is Gotham's about to end. I didn't know that's crazy because I love Gotham, but I'm kind of glad it's about to come to an end because I couldn't keep up with it and everything else. It's just crazy. Okay, so that brings us to our next topic when it comes to the Disney Plus app, and that is the huge announcements that have been made recently about the TV show The Mandalorian. Matter of fact, there was one we discovered tonight. We're like, we didn't know that. So we'll start off with some of the lead cast, which has actually been revealed to us now as people that are in The Mandalorian. First off, we'll start off with The Mandalorian. By the way, if you didn't know, Pedro Pascal is playing The Mandalorian.
And people all over the world are going, who?
Who? Well, I have to admit, like, I was like, who? I didn't even go look it up at the time because I didn't have time to go look it up online. That is the guy who faced the mountain in Game of Thrones. So as soon as Gary said that, I knew exactly what we were talking about.
The Red Viper.
The Red Viper.
He was Whiskey and the Kingsman, the Golden Circle.
Yeah, so that was the cowboy guy.
Which amazed
With the
me.
whip.
I did not recognize.
the whip.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The guy
he-
with the laser whip. Amazing.
Right.
He did an exceptional job in the Great Wall, too.
Oh, in the Great Wall.
I have to see that.
It was different, but it was good. I liked it.
I also heard he did a pretty good job in Graceland, that TV series about Elvis's property and all that.
Yeah, but it's like I told both you guys. If you scroll down a little bit here on IMDb, right? I think there. Hold on. Where was it?
Yep, right there.
Oh yeah, I think the role he'll most be known for is Goth Guy in Earth versus the Spider, the television movie from 2001. Defining career role.
You know Netflix, or you know the MST3K is just waiting for the opportunity for that to go into B film mode, and they're gonna go after that like hard.
Now, what I want to do, I want to get a movie poster of that.
And have him
And
sign it.
when I see him, have him
Sign it. That actually would be kind of fun to do.
I loved you in this.
I loved you in The Mandalorian. Could you sign this poster about Earth's
No.
I love
I'm in
Earth
line.
versus the Spider.
I'm in line with that. I loved you in this movie.
So I think he's kind of an interesting choice for The Mandalorian. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the role that this takes on. You know, I think he's a good enough actor to pull off a TV series for sure. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for him. The other one that they've picked is Gina Carano to play somebody, we don't know who, in the show. Now, I got to admit, the picture at IMDb was kind of like, she's a nice-looking young lady, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, that's the chick that fought Colossus in Deadpool. And it's like, whoa, she played Angel Dust in Deadpool, and I can't get over that. Those two pictures look so worlds apart for me. But she's, Gary, you said she's an ex-MMA fighter, right?
Yep. And she was also in the Fast and Furious movies.
She was in the Fast and Furious movies. So it'll be interesting to see what role she plays in this movie, whether she's a good guy or bad guy. We don't even know that. So she's definitely in it. And then the latest one, which kind of took us by surprise as we were looking through, apparently Disney's announced that Nick Nolte is joining the cast of The Mandalorian.
And they want him to look just like his mugshot. Crazy white hair and everything.
Hey.
Well, I kind of like the idea of Nick Nolte, because wouldn't he play a really good, like, crazy out of control pirate? Like, seriously, wouldn't he?
That'd be awesome, you know, the mugshot, you know, and the Mandalorian's going after the bounty on him. That'd be awesome.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he could be the pirate the Mandalorian's going after, right?
Well,
or whatever.
You know that when the Ang Lee Hulk came out, that was why he looked the way he did in Ang Lee's Hulk. They actually said, we want you to look like that mugshot.
Oh, the mugshot?
So he went with the white hair, and he looked all disheveled, and he was all like, he looked...
No, I didn't know.
They purposely made him kind of like the mugshot. That was the way they did the character.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's how far back that mugshot goes. To give you
Right.
an idea, Ang Lee's Hulk came out in, 2003 or something?
Something like that,
So, and
yeah.
that was before that. It was like the late 90s or something.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what role he plays in the TV show. I keep wanting to say movie, but it's a TV show. It just looks very epic, and it was interesting. We were reading another article tonight about the Russo brothers talking about the unique way they're shooting this TV show.
Yeah, he did a set visit. They did a set visit with the episode. Taika Waititi, right? The guy who directed Thor Ragnarok, is doing an episode, and apparently the technology they're using on this TV show is going to make it look spectacular.
Yeah, and they did talk about, and you've talked about it several times, the Jungle Book technology.
I was amazed when I saw what was actually digital in that movie. And I knew the animals were,
right,
and I knew the epic distant vistas had to be, but I was assuming that some of the more localized stuff was built. And then I'd see the set, and it was just pure blue screen with people carrying around this kid. No ground, no nothing. I'm like, I could not tell. So
speaking of which, have you guys seen the trailer for the live-action Lion King?
Yeah.
And I like everyone saying, it's not really live action. It's all CGI.
And I'll give you that. It's not.
It's just another form of animation, but it's realistic animation.
I was gonna say it's impressive. I find it impressive. I'm like, that's pretty. I mean, it's definitely over the top. I was like, wow. I mean, it definitely takes things to a newer level for Disney. There's a lot of people are complaining it's almost shot for shot like the
trailer was
the cartoon, and I'm kind of like, so what if the whole movie is? Who cares? I'd love to see it in live action form, shot for shot like the cartoon, because the comparisons would not be anywhere near. For me, I mean, I don't think it's even comparable, but I'm excited about this TV show.
I'd like to see a Family Guy version of
it. It would be hard for Seth Green to put that together, I'm sure. What do you guys think? I mean, like, having these three actors come on, does that kind of bubble up your interest about this show a little bit?
Actors, it's tough. Unless it's a huge name where I'm like, holy crow, they got that. Right. I'm like, okay, these are good. I like that these are not big name stars. I kind of like that they're going. I mean, Nick Nolte is, but he may be playing a more side role or something. We don't know. I like that the leads are people that can really lose themselves in the role, and you're not going to see them go, oh, that's so and so and that's so and so. There's more of a chance of you falling into the fantasy because of that.
Right. The only problem I see is I don't think you're going to see Pedro Pascal in the armor too much.
Okay.
That's my only concern on that.
I get what you're saying. Because like somebody else in the armor, and Pedro's doing a lot of shots outside of the armor.
No, I'm just saying
it'll be the Spider-Man effect, where they'll find any and every reason that he's not going to wear a helmet.
Or
Spider-Man never had. They took the mask off all the time in the freaking movies, the early movies, and you're like, put the mask. You're Spider-Man. Wear the mask. They found a reason to show the face because that's what they're paying for, and that's what he's worried about. Is like they'll find reasons to not have him be a Mando.
So we're not going to hear a lot of amped up voiceover kind of things. It'll be more of him taking his helmet off and talking to people kind of thing.
Well, you'll hear that, but you're not going to see him in the armor all the time.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, a Mando movie or TV show,
I don't know.
Should be.
And maybe this is because I like Jon Favreau and the way he thinks out of the box. He did talk about the Iron Man movies, and one of the things they wanted to do is they wanted to see Tony Stark. And so a lot of the things, if you think back to the Iron Man movies, is they show the heads-up display, right? And you see Tony Stark, because they were paying him for his face, not for him to be in an Iron Man suit.
Right. But he wanted to be in the suit, though.
He did.
Is Pedro Pascal want to be in the suit all the time?
And maybe he does. We don't know, right? We don't know his motivation at this point.
I don't know.
And could they? I'm just saying, could they do that here? They could do the heads-up display, because we know there's HUD displays inside Mando armor. Could we, for the first time, see that and use that as a way to show Pedro? I mean, I'm just saying, there is hope that maybe that's a possibility that they're thinking of doing it.
Well, look at Phasma. She had her helmet off a lot too.
You're right. I know.
Wait, what? Phasma? Yeah. Phasma never took her helmet off.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did.
I never saw the character without the helmet on in the movies.
No, she did several times actually.
When?
I'll show you. I'll show you on YouTube later. Several times she took it off. On the ship, when she first came up to question him after they got back,
she never took it off.
Yeah, she did. She actually took the helmet off to talk to him first.
No, I'm betting you're wrong on this. I think you guys are picturing something, because I made a point of going, I have never seen Gwendolyn Christie in a Star Wars movie. I've only seen Phasma. I've been aware of this.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at it later. And
I really want to see it. I don't think she does.
Okay. All right.
I think the only thing we've ever seen...
We'll bring that back to the next episode.
I think the only thing we've ever seen of Gwendolyn Christie is her eye from the broken mask in the last movie.
Okay. I'm pretty sure she takes the helmet off.
The trash compactor part.
Trash compactor portion
No.
she did,
Yes.
right?
No, she was in the mask the entire time.
No.
Yes.
Nope.
I guarantee it. I think you guys are wrong, and I totally want to bring this up. Let's take a look.
For the next, we will look between now and the next episode, and we'll let you know. Okay, so there's definitely a lot of hype, I think, around the Mandalorian. It'll be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. Okay, next thing we want to talk about, StarWars.com just released some. They're about 7 1-minute shorts.
Yeah, on YouTube, and I think there's more coming
on their YouTube channel, and it's mostly for Star Wars kids. And the target audience is supposed to be kids. And it's titled Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures. Now, Eric, you kind of had some more information about this because you brought it to our attention.
Well, basically, from what I read, it is a way to introduce a younger audience to the original Star Wars movies who may not have the patience or the interest in watching those older films. You know, as Spider-Man says, hey, remember that wicked old movie, Empire Strikes Back? That's the way a lot of the younger generation looks at those films. They're really old. The same way when we were kids, we looked at like Casablanca and stuff. We're like, we don't want to watch that. It doesn't have high special effects and all the modern day stuff. So they're trying to get kids, I think, at a young age, interested in the story by doing these snippets that encapsulate sections of the original trilogy. And as we saw a little bit extra, they did a bit from Rogue One.
Right.
And it's captured in an animation form in these bite-sized segments to kind of draw them in and be like, what's this? I want to see more about it. It's supposed to get kids interested in Star Wars and learning more about the stories.
Right. And so we watched them because we decided, hey, why not check them out for ourselves? Let's see what this thing's all about. You know, it's interesting. It's got kind of a semi-animation style to it, but not all like stylized like animation is. Right. It's a little more blocky than that in that regard. It was interesting. I thought, each 1-minute episode was, had its moments and its pluses. I mean, we laughed at quite a few things, like R2 screeching halt and acting like they didn't see Darth Vader and hope he doesn't see them. And
I thought that was the best part of the whole
thing. I thought that was the best one of all of the ones we watched.
They just come to a stop, he walks by, and they just turn around and go away.
Yeah, like, I thought the Chewbacca one was actually kind of funny, too.
Yeah, the one with him and Han was really good.
Yeah, and I guess my only concern is, like, if they're trying to tell the Star Wars story through these to a younger generation, there's definitely a lot of gaps. So I'm kind of hoping at some point maybe they'll fill those in as they go. It looks like, according to the trailer we watched, that's the plan.
There's more segments that we haven't seen.
There's more segments that we haven't seen, but it definitely there's some missing parts here. Overall, though, I kind of enjoyed them. Gary, what did you think of the adventures that we watched here, the Galaxy of Adventures?
Well, what I saw, but I enjoyed what I saw. So.
Yeah. Do you think this will work, though? Will this really draw in a new generation of Star Wars fans?
I could see certain scenes making kids go to their, they could ask their parents, what's that?
Hey, what is that thing? Yeah.
Or their dad could show it to them and say, oh, you want to see Star Wars? Yeah. Okay. I can see it, as long as it generates some of those conversations. Those parents might be able to get those kids to sit down and watch those movies.
I just don't know if it's a be-all and end-all to convince kids to watch the movies. You know what I mean?
I don't think it is. I think it's just another tool.
I think it's still, and this is the weird thing, Star Wars, I think, is still going to be the folk song of the movie universe. It's going to get passed from generation to generation by the parents. Like, I got into Star Wars, I passed it on to my kids. I know full well, even whether my oldest daughter ever will admit it or not, she will end up introducing Star Wars to her kids. My son will do it. My youngest will do it. And I think that's the way Star Wars is generally going to get passed from generation to generation. It's going to be parents to kids. And I think that's kind of interesting because folk music was like that for a long time, and it didn't need to be a thing. It just happened. Mm-hmm. And I think Star Wars has already set itself up for that. And a lot of people thought Star Trek would, and it didn't. And I don't think Star Wars is going to fall short on that. I think Star Trek did, but I don't think Star Wars will. And so it'll be interesting to see if that really plays out for kids, like if this really helps them, or if, I don't know, maybe it's just a small marketing ploy just to get the conversation going, like you said, Eric. It'll be interesting to see. All right, last thing we wanted to talk about. A trailer was released. When was that released, by the way? Do we know officially?
Not long ago. It was
just a couple weeks ago, right?
It's about 2 weeks ago.
For a movie called Once Upon a Deadpool. And Eric kind of got us to watch it because I was like, I didn't know what this stupid thing was. I kept seeing like announcements for it, and I didn't know what it meant. And apparently they're going to re-release, now it's Deadpool 2, right?
Yeah, it's Deadpool 2.
In PG-13 format. Interesting. It looks like they're going to keep it almost like Princess Bride in the way they're going to tell the story, correct?
Obviously they're going to be losing some time due to either excessive growth, violence, blood, whatever, and they've got to add some stuff in to pad it back out full. So what they've done as a storytelling device is they're framing it like the movie Princess Bride, where
Right.
Fred Savage was in bed and Peter Falk was reading the story to him, and they'd cut back to it from time to time. Only this time, Deadpool has kidnapped Fred Savage because of him being in the Princess Bride as an adult now, though, and has duct taped him to a bed and forcing him to do it. And it's very Deadpool.
Oh yeah, it absolutely
the whole concept is very Deadpool.
It is. I guess my only concern is this Disney's attempt to
And this is a good point.
test market a PG-13 Deadpool so that if they do grab it from Fox, that all of a sudden now they could dial back Deadpool permanently to a PG-13 decision.
Right.
And that concerns me a little. Because to me, Deadpool's R. I'm sorry, there's no way to do Deadpool without that R rating. He has to be over the top. And if he's not, I just don't see it. I don't see it. My only concern is if this movie does well, Disney will draw it back and decide.
Well, then here's the other way I look at it. And I've said this before. How do you get Deadpool, who is so clearly beyond the fourth wall in knowing what actors play Marvel roles and commenting on them, how do you eventually merge him, if Ryan Reynolds is still playing him, into a Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah, that's
and
a tough
my
one.
idea was always, if he's in a group movie, he's PG-13.
Yeah.
If he's in his, and he doesn't break the fourth wall.
Right.
He does his shtick of being crazy Deadpool and comments and insults and all that stuff, but they dial back on the fourth wallness a bit and they
Right.
PG-13 him. And then when he's in his own movie, it amps back up, and he can even do commentary on the other movie he was in.
True.
And they could go that far so that the Deadpool movies stand alone. And I always think that's the way they have to address him, is they can't bring his fourth wallness into the other movies because it kind of ruins the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So maybe this is their way to test just to see if that part of him could work. And if so, this character can successfully be merged with the other characters in that way. And that's the way I think you have to kind of approach it.
Gary, what do you think about Deadpool PG-13?
Why?
That's kind of where I'm at, too. Deadpool 2 was so good. Why would you ruin it with a PG-13 rating? Is where my head went to immediately.
I want to go see it as a matinee just to see what they do.
I get that. There's a curiosity to it. I just don't know if my curiosity is that. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying, Eric. I get it.
I just see it as a ploy to make more money.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Isn't everything a ploy to make money?
Well, and Fox has got to do everything they can to make as much money as they can off of it while they can.
Yeah,
because
while they
at
hold
some
on to
point, it's a done deal. Okay, so those were our thoughts on all of those things. The Mandalorian, Deadpool, Stanley's passing,
cancellation of
Netflix series, and all of those things and more. We'd love to hear from you. So head on our website, galaxycast.com. Let us know what you think. Write to us at galaxycast@gmail.com. We'd love to get some email, again, Hondo and Ned. And we'd love to hear from you as our audience. And we're going to take a moment and take a break, and we're going to watch Star Wars Resistance. And we'll be back with our thoughts on the latest episodes from Star Wars Resistance. Okay, let me pause our video.
You bring up...
Oh, look, it's George Lucas. My kids keep saying I do that too well. I said, that's because that was me as a kid. Gary, you look like you're looking for something.
Yeah, I was wondering if these are my sneakers or they're...
They must be. They're not mine. Mine are upstairs.
Oh. Probably yours.
They are.
It was either that or I was wondering if you're looking for the episode. That never happened. By the way, our YouTube channel's going to say no. Okay.
Don't bother me any.
Let me pull up the information on this episode.
Is anybody actually watching this?
Watching what? The YouTube channel?
Yeah.
We've actually got quite a few watchers. You'd be surprised. We got about 120 people watching it so far.
Really?
Yeah, more than I thought. At least initially.
Any comments? Thumbs downs?
No, not any of that. None of that yet. Anyway, no comments, no thumbs down or thumbs up for that matter. No, like none of that.
No, are you sleeping again?
No, not yet. So.
Woo, nice.
I'm not trying to scroll there, but for some reason I ended up there. What the heck?
Meet the girl in Binghamton, huh?
Yeah. No only Binghamton to me.
Yeah, I don't think we got a whole lot of palm trees.
I was gonna say, where's I gotta find out where that is. What the heck is going on here?
Hey, you know.
Okay. There we go. Really? Greg Proops was one of the... Okay, and Elijah Wood.
So wait, Greg Proops was...
Jack Sivrak.
Which one was that?
Oh.
He also did Garma briefly at the bar.
Well, let's find out who Jack Sivrek is. Character isn't seen but heard. The racer announcer for Colossus. Okay.
You know what? It's funny. Greg Proops was one of the two heads of the announcers from
Wasn't
Phantom
he?
Menace.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was just sitting here going to say that.
I believe.
Rachel McFarlane. I wonder if she's related to Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah.
Spencer since. Huh. Okay.
So, and who? Elijah Wood was the other guy.
Oh, well, look at all the other things she's known for.
Family Guy, Orville. I think there's a relation there.
Huh. So there's a McFarlane working on this. Okay. Interesting. All right, you guys ready to record?
You guys are.
Hey folks, welcome back to this episode of the GalaxyCast. Hope you had a good break with us, and we are now going to review to us, which is not to you, the latest episode of Star Wars Resistance titled Fuel for the Fire.
Not to be confused with the Metallica song.
Give
me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Which, by the way, I was looking it up. It's interesting, the Disney app on DirecTV and a Disney app and now IMDb are all debating about the numbering system on these episodes. So this is actually episode 3, according to IMDb, but when you look at Disney's store, it's episode 4 because they counted the first episode
it was
as
4.
2.
It was 4 on the DVR.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And it's also that way on the Disney XD app. I looked it up while we were watching.
IMDb says it's 3.
But it's 3.
Because the first episode is broken into 2.
Into 2, correct. But it was the Recruit Part 1, the Recruit Part 2.
And there, some people are counting that as one episode and some aren't. And they get on the same page, people.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like, could we all agree on how we're going to number these episodes so it's not, I don't know, weird for us when we're trying to talk about these things?
Well, for me, they could just number them with pillows.
Apparently. Gary fell asleep through this episode. I'm just being honest here.
This is episode 3Zs.
3Zs, yeah. So,
and I've been falling asleep with all of them. It's not just this one.
Yeah.
It's interesting. They actually they summed up the entire show in one sentence. Kaz befriends a sky racer named Rucklin, who pressures him to take some rare and dangerous hyperfuel hidden in Yeager's office.
You now know the entire
There you go.
episode.
That's the entire episode. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and that's we're done.
And I am still stumped at the lack of a storyline in this episode. I mean, we were sitting there watching it. It was about halfway through, right, where I looked at you guys and said, you do realize all we're doing again is fighting about fuel.
It's another episode about fuel.
Episode about fuel.
Which, as you recall, if you watched our Rebels...
I do remember that.
So you were awake for that part, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
If you've watched our Rebels
I woke up for that
reviews, we were amazed at how many episodes of Rebels happen to revolve around getting fuel.
Apparently, fuel is a big problem in the Star Wars universe.
Well, it wasn't in any episodes up until now.
Right. Yeah, and so now it's suddenly a big deal. So
cruisers are running out of fuel in the Rebels in the Last Jedi, and everyone's running out of fuel.
And it's ironic because I really can't sum up the episode more than that one sentence did.
Right.
Because that pretty much did it, and I don't know what else to say about the episode.
The whole episode was meant to be a character development episode. We were supposed to see Kaz go from being cocky to maybe realizing that he's got certain good things. He thinks it's all bad, and that maybe it's not, and that maybe things that seem more appealing, like this group of teenagers who party more and have fun, are not true friends, and who are his true friends, and they did all that kind of stuff as subtext to the episode. He was supposed to grow in this episode.
I will say this: I think the show is more about Yeager than it was about Kaz, because we finally had the revelation about Yeager having been in the Battle of Jakku, that he had a family.
We don't know what happened to the family.
We don't know how.
They're gone.
We assume they're gone. So to me, this was more about Yeager than it was about Kaz.
Right.
Not that we really care that much about Yeager, because quite honestly, I have no attachment to Yeager. I have more attachment to Kaz and quite honestly BB-8 at this point than I do Bucket and Yeager, which seem to be more the focal point.
The thing I'm getting tired of with Kaz, and it's only been 3 episodes, and I have a feeling from the way I've heard other people review the later episodes, it's going to continue, even though I hope it's not, is the cocky attitude where he always fails.
Right.
Hey, I fixed this engine. You're going to be amazed. And then the engine puffs. It's the joke is so
tired.
It's so heavy-handed. It's like I could see it and it was beyond the curvature of the Earth, and I could still see it coming.
Right.
You know, it's like it's so telegraphed. There's nothing original about that concept of a cocky person doing something that doesn't work out and blah, blah, blah. And they're playing that up every episode.
Right.
And it doesn't make me like him any. He's supposed to be my lead, but he's not someone I can identify with because he's being a jerk.
Gary, you were going to say something.
Well, you just said tired and everything, and it made me tired.
So it was interesting that we were kind of surprised a little bit that some of the characters' voices were by people that we were a little shocked at.
Oh, yeah.
For example, Greg Proops from Whose Line Is It Anyway was in this for Jack Sivrak, who, by the way, is the announcer, we found out. Which, as Eric pointed out, is also an announcer from Star Wars Episode 1.
Greg Proops was one of the announcers.
The double-headed creature. Elijah Wood was Jace Rucklin. That's right. The guy who drops the ring in the dang mountain is the guy who played Jace Rucklin, which I'm surprised I didn't recognize his voice.
No, I didn't recognize it at all.
What'd you think of the character Jace? I mean,
well, you knew from the moment he did anything that he was not on the up and up. He was going to be.
Yeah.
He had some sort of nefarious plan.
You know what he reminded me of? It's typical high school bully.
Yeah.
And he played the role well. I mean, at least in that regard. I think it's interesting to note that Rachel McFarlane was in this episode. We believe is some relation to Seth MacFarlane.
Because when you look at her page, she's been on Family
Guy,
and
Orville, and so there's got to either their brother and sister, or I don't know. They didn't mention him being married to, so I'm thinking it's the sister. There's Eric Bauza, and I don't know who he is, but he played Gorak Wiles, which was what creature is that, Gary?
He's a Neednum.
Yeah.
Neednum, thank you.
I don't know if that's a species, but that's...
Yeah, but that was the character's name, right? Yeah.
That was the name, and if you saw Return of the Jedi, he was Lando's co-pilot as they attacked the
one who went,
Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't speak in basic.
There, he didn't speak in basic, so... So, the whole episode, I mean, there were a couple scenes where I liked, and there were a couple scenes where I was like, what is going on here?
Right.
I actually kind of liked the engine fouling off the I don't know, what are they on, a spaceport, a platform, I guess.
It's a space platform.
I just thought it was funny that the whole episode we put into the ocean a engine, speeder bike, and parts to an engine too, because at the end
parts to a whole ship. And then parts to an engine after that.
So all I can say is people who love the ocean should be really ticked off at this episode. Like, we put a lot of things into the ocean, and we didn't seem to go swimming after them, because part of me is like, why not just salvage it?
He did.
Right?
They fished out the first thing he dropped in.
Did they salvage?
Yeah, it's the shot as he was lifting it with the magnetic hull.
Oh, that's right.
So they got that out.
The Mon Calamari's hook everything up for him.
There you go.
Because it's a twop.
It's a twop. So we were dropping a lot of things in the ocean. We had a really kind of weird bike race. I'm not sure why. What was the point of that?
It's
a bonding moment.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, is they clearly sabotaged Kaz's bike, because he said, good, at the end,
right.
The other guy said, the one played by Elijah Wood, good job with, altering his bike. They wanted him to get into trouble so that he could be rescued, so that he feel he owe them, so that they could then convince him to take him into the office where they were going to steal the fuel.
I get it.
So it was all planned to get him to feel like he owed them.
It just didn't feel
it was just a dangerous.
Yeah,
we're going to risk killing him to get what we want.
I also thought that whole scene was kind of tragically put together in that his bike's failing, yet he's going faster than Elijah Wood's bike. Think about that for a minute.
Well, no, he said, I can't stop it.
Right, I get that.
It was like it was over.
So he's reaching back. I don't know. It just felt awkwardly choreographed, quite honestly.
But I do have to admit, it had a good sense of speed. Even though they're just over a flat surface.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about the show, which I always used to hate about Rebels, was the physics. Rebels just felt plodding. Everything that happened felt like it was kind of stuttering and slow, and at least the sense of speed that they're achieving in this, and the sense of the physics, even like when the engine was hanging and he's pulling on it, or they're hanging at the end and BB-8's trying to hold him up, and he turns slightly sideways to put some tension on the cord. There's little things that the physics of the episodes do that I actually like.
Right. I even liked that BB-8 was trying to roll backwards to try to get some momentum going. Right, and he's skidding while he's doing it. I thought that was all cool too, because that kind of showed some, like you said, some of the three-dimensionalness to it.
And I also liked there was some interesting lighting choices they did in the whole first half of the episode in the platform,
Right.
where a lot of times people were half in shadow.
Yeah.
Or the where they were working was partially in shadow. And I just liked the sense of environment that created. Because the lighting in Rebels was always this kind of 3D, hazy, prime light, secondary light,
Right.
never really dramatic.
Yeah.
Like I remember back when we were watching the end of the Clone Wars, and they did that episode where the robots or the battle droids came onto the ship.
Right.
They disabled the ship. It was floating. It was anti-gravity.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole thing was done in red light.
Yeah.
Like the emergency lights had come on, and I'm like, that's really cool visuals. Very
Right.
artistic. I like when they do that. And then Rebels just seemed to always go the well lit.
Right.
Never dramatic. Didn't have any atmosphere in its lighting. I'm actually noticing a bit of atmosphere in the lighting of this show, and I'm kind of finding it interesting.
Right, from an artistic standpoint, I think it's got some interesting things going on. I just wish the storyline could match that, It's kind of like the ridiculous moment when they're in Yeager's office, and we've got what? Yeager's assistant, we've got Kaz, we've got the robot, and we've got Kaz, and we've got Rucklin, and yet they don't get caught.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's just
around a table.
Right, around a table. So I'm like sitting here saying, like, that's a physical impossibility.
Yeah.
They would have gotten caught. And then, as if that's not bad enough, that's the moment Rucklin manages to take this special fuel. Really? I mean, like, that whole scene was just unbelievable to me.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was amazed there wasn't some comment to BB-8 because he was supposed to be the lookout. And he never told them anything.
Yeah.
And then they meet up with BB-8 and nobody says anything like, hey, where were you? Like, it would have been kind of funny if they kind of kicked him or something and said, where were you in all this? Like, like it would have been kind of funny to have that interaction. And we missed it. There was a missed moment there. What did you guys think about the idea that Kaz ran back to try to save Jace from using the fuel? There seemed to be a lot of blocking in that.
Well, yeah. It was a clear attempt to show that the redeeming value of him as a character.
Right.
That he realizes what happened, he realizes he was used, but he's going to go and save the guy. And they even put that moment in where Yeager sees him in a hallway, and he makes that decision to be like, okay, I know you're going to get mad at me, but I got to go do the right thing. I got to go save this guy.
Right.
And so a little, again, very heavy-handed, but pretty clear that they're trying to make him, yeah, he's a screw-up, and yeah, he's egotistical, but he's got good intentions, is what they're trying to set him up as. And, but then everywhere he went, like you said, there's people in front of him. He ran into like 90 people in the hallway, and
Droids.
other hallways being worked on. It's like, really?
It's like the biggest or the busiest platform I've ever seen in my life, to be honest. I was like, the one thing I did find interesting is they're trying to humanize Yeager more and more, even though he's kind of this hard. You're right, like he's trying to be this hard-nosed leader. Yet at the same time, we're kind of getting this impression that like there's something he knows that we don't.
Well, he clearly has a history with the rebellion.
Sure. And the other interesting thing is we never actually did see Yeager's
Ship.
Ship, yeah.
that he supposedly won on, and I'm wondering if that might be the season 1 finale. We finally see Yeager in a ship flying it. Maybe. I'm just wondering if that's like the thing.
I mean, they said he not only did he win the race, he won it by a large margin.
He like whooped everybody's rear end, so it'd be kind of interesting to see if maybe that's the way they do it.
He's like, and here's the reason why he would know Poe. He's a Poe level pilot.
Right. So, and then you pointed out, Eric, that for the first time in the whole series, we finally see the guy in the tower. Briefly. Just very, ever so briefly. And I thought it was interesting, some foreshadowing here, because Yeager says we don't want to draw attention to ourselves at this point in time. And so there was a little bit of foreshadowing there, which was kind of interesting. So overall, I guess we should rate this episode, because that's pretty much all. I don't. Do you guys have anything to add to this episode? I mean, there really wasn't much else to talk about.
It led to basically there being a bit more mutual respect between Yeager and Kaz, because at the end, Yeager lets him go and cleans parts outside on the ledge where he can watch the races.
Right.
He realizes, oh, hey, I'm...
And then Kaz lets all the parts go into the ocean.
Yeah, and then once again, they roll into the ocean. But it really was a weird mix of, hey, let's do all this character development that's kind of vague, and we'll put one person you've just met at risk, and that guy's going to be a jerk and steal some... It's like it was very not focused.
Yeah, I'll give you that. And I agree with you about the lighting thing. And at the end, I thought it was interesting that there was that like double, like, hey, you get to go out and clean, but oh, by the way, the race is going on, so you get to watch that. So there's that kind of like double meaning to that. But I agree with you, Eric. It just felt weird. Like it was kind of like mishmashed together. Like maybe there were 4 writers and 2 went in a room and wrote one part of it, and 2 went in a room and wrote another part of it, and they came back together and went, oh shoot, how do we get that middle section back together? And it just didn't click somewhere along the way. I don't know.
Well, very clearly they
felt disjointed.
They felt the directive that, hey, we're 3 episodes in, Kaz needs a teachable moment.
Right. But I'm not sure that they got that out of this, and that's the weird thing about it.
Not well enough.
All right, so I guess we'll rate this episode a 0 that don't bother, or 10s being a must-see. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Gary.
0.
Okay. Then why would you give this one a 0?
Because as an episode to keep me awake, it didn't do it.
Yeah, you were pretty much asleep the entire episode.
Yep.
There was nothing in this that got you at all, huh?
No.
Didn't even hook you from the beginning.
Nope.
Wow. I guess I'll go next. I would actually rate this particular episode probably a 4 or 5. Like, I'd say 4. Storyline was just so lacking for me. The only redeeming qualities to the whole thing was learning a little bit about Yeager, which we could have done some other way. And there were just so many unbelievable things about it. The bike, the kind of weird interaction between Kaz and Jace, and just the whole scene inside the office was just awkward. And I know it was supposed to set up so many things, but that's what made it awkward. And it could have been an amazing scene, but it ended up being a really stupid one in the long run. So that's why it's only a 4 for me. Eric, how about you?
I was going to go 5, like right in the dead middle.
Okay.
Same reasons as you. The story was just unfocused is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
They clearly had this general idea that we wanted Kaz to grow. Hey, let's learn a little about Yeager, and while we're at it, we need some sort of catalyst to move things along, so this guy they meet will steal some fuel. And it's like, that's all they had, and they kind of built an episode around that.
Right.
And it's like, we're 3 episodes in, and already you're making a plot about a guy spying for the rebels on a platform boring.
Right.
You're focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
It's like padding. They always used to call filler episodes in anime. There's things called filler episodes where the anime will actually get ahead of where the writer is writing the manga it's based on.
Okay.
So they can't do the proper story anymore, so they start making filler episodes. Mm-hmm. Naruto was famous for this. It did like dozens and dozens and dozens of filler episodes where it had nothing to do with the main story.
Almost opposite of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And it's like, holy crap, man, get to the main story. And I feel like that's what this show needs to do, is they could learn from things like, Game of Thrones and stuff like that.
Right.
Focus on the main story. Stop doing these little side things and thinking we're going to love it and that the character's going to be growing. It needs to tell a focused story. And it's kind of all over the place. And we're only 3 or 4 episodes in, depending on who you are. So for the visuals, I liked. For some of the physics they're setting up, I liked. The sense of speed and the races could be cool. But the story going nowhere, I'm right in the dead middle. I'll give it a 5.
What they need to do is just focus on him being the spy and have the racing and everything else just in the background.
Right, and right now I feel like they're focusing on the racing, and the spy thing just happens to be the background.
He hasn't done any spying.
And I think that's the wrong, like, we're moving in the wrong direction. That's the best way I can explain it. It's almost like we're trying to make this a pod racing show, right? But not pod racing.
Yeah,
it's air pod racing.
I'd rather watch the pod racing.
Now that is hoop racing.
Right? Like, that's what it feels like, yeah. Okay, so I know that's kind of short, folks, but like we don't know what else to say. I think you've pretty much kind of caught our feelings on this.
Hey, Ned, why don't you write in and let us know what you thought of this episode?
I mean, Hondo, don't bother. Oh, wait, you should write in too. Yes, Hondo, you need to write in as well. So those are our thoughts on this episode of Star Wars Resistance. That's pretty much it. That's all we got. We'd love to hear from you. If you disagree with us especially, we'd love to hear from you. So go to GalaxyCast.com, email us at GalaxyCast@gmail, or find us on Facebook, Twitter. We're working on presences all over the internet. And
presence?
Presence as presence. How
about
the plural of
presence.
Our presence, whatever the plural is of that. And we'd love to hear from you. And as we always like to say here in the Star Production Studios,
golly,
Shazam!
Ready? Let's try it again. As we say here in the Star Production Studios, may the Force be with those who listen
and stay awake
to Hondo's Shatter Points. Okay. Well, folks, in YouTube land, I hope you enjoyed watching us yet again, and I look like I put on 3,000 pounds, and I don't, but have a good one. Have a good night.